Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. So, as we were discussing yesterday, Jesus is the Word of God. And when I ask you, how do you know what is in a book? If it has pages but no words, how do you know what the author really had in mind? What is he trying to convey to you? What is his message? You wouldn't know what is in the mind of the author if there were no words. And in the same way, we cannot know God if there are no words, right? We are people with languages and symbols and words. We need to understand and communicate through words. And that is why God has revealed himself to us through his son Jesus and also the Bible and scriptures, because those are words. And whatever language you speak, hopefully you're speaking English so they can understand what I'm saying. But how do we know what God is like? Right? We look at Jesus, but those of us who cannot see him, we have to read what is written about him, both in the Old Testament and the New Testament. So when you listen to Christ, you focus on his words. Jesus said many, many things, and oftentimes these are things that matter the most to us. So the fact that he does exist and he came into the world 2000 plus years ago is a fact, and most people would not even argue with that anymore. So Jesus did come into the world as his son Jesus Christ. And look at the date this year. It's 2020, meaning that Jesus came over 2020 years ago, 2020 years ago. Just imagine that. When basically the calendar itself gives testament and testifies to his existence. The story of his birth, the birth of Christ, as many of us know, especially during Christmas time, we hear this a lot. You know, the three wise men, right, the Magi, and the big bright star that pointed to where Jesus would be born, the angels and the shepherd, and you know, the busy time during the census. Everyone in the family had to go back to their hometown, and so Mary and Joseph had to go back to Bethlehem, house of bread, and and then there was no room in the manger for them. They had to, I mean, there's no room in the inns for them. They had to go live in a manger for a bit. And then Mary was pregnant and going to give birth, so she gave birth to Jesus in the manger. So, you know, the story of his birth, the birth of Christ, is a miracle. And let me explain to you with the words of C.S. Lewis. Some of you may know who C.S. Lewis is. He's the author of the Narnia series. Maybe you've seen movies Narnia. Maybe you've heard of C.S. Lewis. Go check it out. C.S. Lewis, Lewis. All right. So this is what he wrote about the birth of Christ. The second person in God, the Son, became human himself and was born into the world as a natural man, a real man of a particular height, with hair of a particular color, speaking a particular language, weighing so many pounds. The eternal being who knows everything, who created the whole universe, became not only a man, but before that, a baby. And before that, a fetus in a woman's body. If you want to get the hang of it, think how you would like to become a slug or a crab. So just imagine that, and we call this this manifestation of becoming a baby, God becoming a baby into human flesh, we call that in the Incarnation, which means God clothing himself in human flesh. So this is one of the most important things, and it is actually a big miracle, considering how God can come into the world through a baby, through a baby, a fetus in a woman's womb. Imagine that, right? Um, so let me give you an illustration of this story. Once this is a Hindu leader who spoke to someone who went to his country to tell them about Jesus, and this Hindu leader said, why don't you tell us about, you know, the principles, the concepts and theology and all that stuff. Like, we don't really need to know about this Jesus person. Who is this Jesus person? We don't need to know about Jesus. We don't need to know about Christ. Just tell us the principles of Christianity, all right? We doubt the person of Jesus Christ. But the thing is, Jesus is, without Jesus, the whole Christianity, the whole belief system, everything is all based on Jesus, right? So I can't just tell you about the philosophies or the theories or the theology without telling you about Jesus. It is very, very important. That's why I mention Jesus all the time, because he is central to our faith, to Christianity, and principles are embodied in this one person. That is honestly where the power comes from. The miracle, the power, the strength and the evidence is all found in Jesus Christ. Everything is based on him. So it is very, very important that you understand more and more about who Jesus is. So without any doubt, Jesus is the greatest person ever lived, who ever lived. Like, you can do your own research, and I really encourage you to do that. But ultimately, I believe he is the greatest person that has ever lived in the world. The world is so different because of what Jesus has done. Because he came into the world, he introduced different things to us, and most of all, he introduced who God the Father, his Father, who became our Father, who God is to us. Those of us who have seen Jesus, who have read about him, who have witnessed and been touched by him in our lives, we know God the Father as well. Like I said, we can't come to the Father without Jesus Christ, because we are sinful and God is holy, and he cannot accept unholy, sinful people, because he demands justice, and the penalty of sin is death. So, in the same way, we need to come through Jesus Christ, who came to the world, was who was sent by God the Father, by our Father. Now, he sent him into our world, so that, and we'll get to that. Let me just get to that later on. Let me just continue off with where I was talking. So this person of Jesus, like, we can't just preach or talk about Christianity and our faith without Jesus. Jesus is very, very important, and again, without a doubt, he is the greatest person that's ever lived. So I want to touch a bit upon that today, and then I'll continue tomorrow. So first of all, we know, those of us who know the Christmas story, we know that Jesus came into the world as a baby, right? And Mary was a virgin, and his foster father, was Joseph, who was a carpenter by trade. So he does carpentry, basically work with wood, whether he does tables or chairs and other things like that. Whatever it is, he does his work with wood. That's his foster father, not his biological father. So he was brought up. He was born in the village of Bethlehem, like I mentioned just now. And if you listen to any, Christmas story, you would know that he was born in Bethlehem. And he had a mother and a foster father called Joseph. When he was 12 years old, he went to the temple, and he astonished the leaders there with his understanding of the law, the Torah. and um, and he had great understanding of God because he was God. Yeah, he was God. He is God, and he had great understanding of God and religious matters, and all the different issues that they were struggling with. Right? Who else better to know all these things than God, who knows everything and everyone? So, we don't really see him much in the Bible. We don't really hear much, or basically the story, his story basically skips over until he's like around 30 years old. When he was 30, between 30 to 35, oh sorry, 30 to 33, like 3.5 years. um this is basically where we read about him in the Gospels span those 3.5 years, so 3.5 years, from the age of 30 to 33. And he was basically a preacher. He would travel, preach, and heal, and he would be telling people about how to find God. There are many miracles that are attributed to him, such as feeding thousands of people by multiplying a few fish and a couple of loaves of bread, calming the storm, healing the sick, and on different occasions raising people from the dead, and obviously casting out demons, and all kinds of different miracles like this. It's really, really awesome. So I definitely encourage you to read the Gospels, the letters, or the accounts of Jesus, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Go check it out. And for the full story, you should definitely read it. Right, so I'm going to continue tomorrow with more about who Jesus is, and give you a better background. I think most of you who are new to this, you may not know too much about Jesus, and may not even have read the Gospels. But I would definitely encourage you to read it between now and tomorrow. Read as much as you can, maybe just a couple of chapters today, and this is the best time to read it. And I will continue tomorrow. Thank you so much for listening, and I will catch you and continue this tomorrow. See you bright and early tomorrow. Bye for now.